The New York State Division of Parole is an agency of government of New York City with the New York State Correctional Services. They shall be execute Department of State Government in the Division of Parole, the New York State Division of Parole, known as parole officers. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Clark Pena, and this is your Advocates Corner. Special program today. Once again, we have a good friend that's joining us to answer a lot of questions. Members of service from the New York State Parole Department reached out, emailed us a whole bunch of questions, and to answer those questions, we're honored once again to have our friend, the president of the Law Enforcement Employees Benevolent Association, Kenneth Winder. Kenny.
How you doing?
Good to see you again, my friend. Again. Good.
Right.
Listen, I've never, in my history of doing these programs, the emails, the questions that have come into us. Are you ready to tackle these questions?
Yes.
Let's start off.
Problem.
Let's start off. Why do you think, Kenny, that the New York State parole officers should choose LEBA as their representatives? Why do you think that?
Well, the biggest question is long time coming. You know, they're buried in PEF, and what I mean by this is PEF is thousands of members, and they're only part of it, so they really don't have a say-so because they belong to an organization that, not an organization, but another union that has multiple titles. And as long as they're in that title, they're not going to be able to fully get what they want and what they need to do their job as law enforcement officers instead of civilians. They're stuck in a civilian union. And that's the issue that's at hand right now, because you can't go to the bargaining table and bargain for civilians and bargain for law enforcement. It's not going to happen.
That's really something, once the members of service found out that you were going to be on the program, and we put out the call, any questions, we didn't expect to receive so many questions for you.
Well, you know what? A lot of people have a lot of questions. They don't know. And they know about LEBA, but they want to know about LEBA. Why is LEBA different? And the question is, why do they want to come to LEBA? Well, we fight for our members. We're a law enforcement union that dedicates everything, all its resources, to promoting and bettering law enforcement officers throughout New York State and New York City.
Absolutely. Well, and I apologize for reading, but we have so many questions.
Not a problem.
So let's go to the next question. LEBA only represents New York City law enforcement titles. Will they be effective in representing a New York State how are they effective in representing a New York State law enforcement title?
Well, it goes for riding a bike. If you can ride one bike, most of the time you can ride any bike. But representing law enforcement is what we do. I'm a retired New York State trooper, so I know all about the state. I know the dealings with the Public Employee Relations Board, which is PERB, which is what they fall under jurisdiction. And
is that city or
that's
PERB?
PERB is state.
PERB
right.
state. Okay.
So even though we deal with the city, we won't have any problems dealing with the state. I'm a former trooper. Our attorney, Mr. Terrence Dwyer, is a former New York State investigator. So we have plenty of dealings with how the state operates. So that will not be an issue at all.
While you mentioned his name, Terry Dwyer, great guy, by the way. Great attorney, but he's a really great guy.
He's a professor. He knows his stuff.
You worked with him, right? You rode with him.
We rode together.
Together with him. Good, very good, very good. How many law enforcement titles does LEBA represent currently? Right
now we have 3. We have Department of Transportation, Highway and Sewer Inspectors, Department of Environmental Police, which covers the waters and the environment and the whole water system for New York City, and for 5 out of 8 counties upstate New York. And we also have sanitation enforcement agents.
And
their supervisors.
That was the last campaign that you had
for
members, right?
Mm-hmm. Election went very well.
Election went very well. It was
very
a landslide
smooth.
win?
Yes, it was.
Landslide win. Now, how will LEBA help New York State parole officers obtain 9 of duty injury benefits?
Well, that's all through contract negotiations. And that's one of their, when they reached out, I did speak to one of the members, and we talked to a couple of them. As long as they're submerged in their union right now, PEF, they're not going to be able to fight for that. That has to be done individually. And they deserve line of duty injury. And let me explain the difference between line of duty is if you get hurt in the course of doing your job, you're covered. You don't have to go on workers' compensation. And the job they do is going into developments, going into people's houses, with people on parole who've committed all kinds of criminal acts, and they get hurt, and they need to be protected.
I in preparation for this segment here today, I did some research. What they do is unbelievable.
Oh, let me tell you,
they're knocking down doors, and PEF. And I'm sorry, I'm going off a little bit from the questions, but PEF is a civilian union.
Yes.
How are they there?
That's another question we can talk about later. But that was the same thing that happened with Department of Environmental Police. They were in a civilian union. They're not supposed to be there. How can you effectively represent a law enforcement entity and civilians at the same time? They need two different things. Most civilians don't even work 24/7. The other civilians are not going to be knocking down doors in the middle of the night,
right.
armed, affecting search warrants. And they also write tickets. They not write tickets, but tickets. When I was a trooper, two most dangerous part of our job was enforcing a traffic ticket on the traffic stop and executing the warrant. So their lives are at grave danger, especially you already know, they already know what they're dealing with. At least when I went up to the car, I didn't know what they were. They know what they are because they're on parole.
And they're executing a search warrant, so they have all that information on the individual.
Yes.
Itself, right. How much are the dues for LIBA members if they join on board?
Well, it varies. A lot of people say dues. Dues are usually a percentage of which is in our bylaws. They vary because it's based on your salary. So the more money you make, the more dues you're going to pay. But what we've had, and the members like it, and all of our new members, the groups that we've taken over, is we don't touch their dues until we deliver on a contract.
So you won't touch their dues until they ratify a contract?
Ratify a new contract, which will show the work that LIBA has done. We haven't raised the dues for the Department of Transportation. We haven't raised the dues for sanitation enforcement agents, which have been the last two groups we've taken in. Right now, we're getting ready to go to arbitration with sanitation enforcement agents, first ever for a non-NYP, well, besides Pat Lynch and NYPD,
nice.
It's the first law enforcement group in the city to go to arbitration.
So I think that's fair. I think that's very fair. That you're not going to raise anything until you show them,
So what I can do?
The goods.
Show them the goods.
Show them the goods. Next question. You have received some negative press. Explain why.
Well, of course. When you go against the grain and you're doing things that other unions don't like, you do things that the city doesn't like. As far as the unions are concerned, a lot of unions don't like what we do. There's a code of respect. I don't even call it respect, just a hands-off code, which is built into the AFL-CIO laws and bylaws, which is called no rating. You don't touch my members, I don't touch your members.
I won't touch your.
So basically, but if your members aren't happy, what do you do for them? So they can't leave. They don't have a choice. They can't have an election. So I can't go to another union and say, hey, they're not treating me right. I mean, competition and consistency and proving yourself always keeps you on your toes. So if a member comes to you and yell and scream and tell you, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D, and you look at them and say, well, you can't go nowhere. What is the incentive to keep your members happy if you know they can't go nowhere?
Is that also covered under the Constitution? Your right to associate?
Well, First Amendment usually states you can go to any union you want, but because they all have an understanding that, like, I give you an example. If you wanted to leave and go to another AFL-CIO union, you can't. They'll tell you have to decertify from your present union, wait 2 years without union representation before you can join our union. Now, who wants to wait 2 years without being protected?
That sounds like a spoil optic.
Well, you know what? It keeps them in place.
Keeps them in place.
And with the Janus decision has said that you have a right to pay your dues to whatever union you consent to.
Are they aware? The parole officers, are they aware that the Janus decision kind of changes the playing field?
Yes,
A bit?
but at the end of the day, if all the members want to be represented by a union that's actually fighting for them, the judge decision is brought about a lot of things. One is there's a lot of groups that haven't lost any members. There's some that have exercised their right. And the reason for that is some of them don't understand. Some of them think that they're hurting the union, but you're really hurting yourself. Because if you get in trouble, you need discipline and you need protection, the union is no longer there. You know, your dues are tax deductible to a point, so what are you really giving up? You know, people don't understand that. You know, and you need everybody on board. You know, a union's only strong as its members.
Absolutely.
And this is why the members have come to me from PEF, and the pro officers. They want a union that's going to stand up for them, that's going to fight for them, and that's what we intend on doing.
Another question, and I'm going to read this one because it's a pretty long question. It says, LIBA allows New York City parole officers to create their own organizations or associations under the umbrella?
Yes, of LIBA.
Will LIBA hold meet and greets with New York State parole officers across the state?
We've always done that. Any campaigns that we've always had, we always come out and meet the members. When we took over DEP, we've gone to the locations. Sanitation enforcement agents have gone to locations, DOT. It's not a problem. That's what we get paid for. We represent them, and you should.
And that's part of the fun part. You know, meeting the members, you get to hear what they're talking about.
I get to go back upstate, you know, which I patrol,
right.
and go to certain locations throughout the state for New York State parole officers. It's not a problem.
Please discuss the New York State parole officers would have to successfully leave PEF and join LIBA.
Well, what they would have to do is, we've begun that process already. That's a process will begin shortly. Sign a decertification card stating that you would like LIBA to authorize LIBA to represent you in certified bargaining, disciplines, and grievances and everything else. And then once we get 30% showing, which is the number that's set up by not only OCB in the city but also through the state, we would begin the process. We would submit it, and we would go to an election.
How many parole officers are?
Last time I checked, they told me just a little shy of 1,000.
Oh, wow, that's
a big group.
Pretty big group.
Pretty big group.
But
still, just a drop in the bucket to all of the PEF employees that are inside PEF.
Right, and they're a big group of civilians according to PEF.
Correct.
Not law enforcement officers.
Correct. Well, they're treating them like that.
Right.
All of the stuff that's in the contract is geared towards civilians. So apparently that's how they treat them.
That's really special. The final question for this segment is: how would LIBA represent the New York State parole officers during disciplinary proceedings?
Easy. We're the only union in the city right now that gives you an attorney for your discipline. So to be well represented, I've always stated, no matter how much money you make, doesn't matter if you don't have a job. If you don't have a job, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
So representation is one of our pet peeves that I've always had. And we supply Mr. Terrence Dwyer, our attorney, and other attorneys will be there when they go in for discipline, because that's where they lose money or they could possibly lose their job.
Kenny, more questions? On the other side of the break. God bless the New York State parole and probation officers that do a tough job every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And when we went on break, we put this question out: why does the President of Law Enforcement Employees Benevolent Association, Kenneth Weiner, believe that law enforcement officers can be better served by a law enforcement union? Mr. President.
Well, let's go back to all those sayings: walk the walk, talk the talk. Well, I'm a former state trooper. I've done law enforcement work. My board consists of current and former police officers who do law enforcement work. And whether you carry a gun or not doing law enforcement work, whether you're a peace officer or police officer under the definition of a police officer, we know the hazards that they face out there day to day. We also know the dangers, and we know how to combat that and how to effectively do a contract that reflects their job and protects them. And that's the most important. You know, they have to be protected out there. You know, line of duty, two-man patrol cars, safety cars, cages, things that some civilians would never understood if they never did the job. I mean, one of the things I suggested when I got to DP, one of the former commissioners there was, not being disrespectful to her, I said, have you ever been a police officer? And she replied, no. And then I said, have you ever went to school for any education as far as law enforcement? And she said, no. And I said, have you done any security, whatever? She says, no. I said, well, I'm a former state trooper. I have my degree at John Jay, criminal justice. I said, I've worked security. I said, so how can you, just logically stand here and tell me how to oversee police officers if you have no idea what they do and what their safety issues are? And she agreed. I give her credit. She said, you're right. And she implemented things to bring in hierarchy that reflect that they were police officers. She brought in NYPD divisions to oversee it.
Before we continue forward, you mentioned DEP.
Yes.
The acronym, what is DEP?
Department of Environmental Police.
They're police officers.
Yes.
They're
Full-fledged police officers.
Full-fledged police officers. They protect our drinking water.
Correct. And they're one of the only, and I repeat, two city police agencies in the city of New York, NYPD and the Department of Environmental Police.
And they do a great job.
Yeah, yes, they do.
Kenny, I've also noticed that what is the benefit to the city to kind of like downgrade or humiliate these members of service that are doing such a tough job? What is the benefit? I don't get it. I really don't.
I don't get it either. Because at the end of the day, who runs the city for parole officers? Who's doing that job? They're not. The police officers, people have their differences when it comes to police officers, but at the end of the day, when something happens, who do you call?
Correct.
Call a police officer. For my other titles in the city, who runs the city? Try going to work, trying to get through the city without a traffic agent, officer out there keeping peace, and you'd have road rage, you'd have fights, you'd have everything. I said, try dropping your child off at a school. School safety agents.
Without a school safety
School safety agents. Do you know in UFT for the teachers that if there's not an agent on site, they don't have to go to work?
I don't blame them.
Well, I don't blame them either, but
right.
but that just goes shows you the importance.
Absolutely.
Department of Homeless Services, sanitation enforcement agents, DOT highway inspectors. They run the city. They keep the city in control, and they do a hard job, but they're not respected. Why? I have no idea. I mean, the city doesn't want to pay. The state doesn't want to pay. Everybody else gets paid, but they don't get paid. But these are jobs, and let me tell you, these are jobs, only certain people can do these jobs.
Absolutely.
You can put them through the academy. They can pass the academy. Once they get out there on the street, if they can do it, they're going to do it. If they can't, you have a problem.
Absolutely. I did some, as you well know, I did some law enforcement work in the past, and
Health and hospital police.
And I'll stay right here.
Well, think about going into a hospital, and there's no police officers in health and hospital to help you going through the emergency room, and in some of these neighborhoods, some of these hospitals.
It's madness.
I mean, it gets to me. It really does. That do we really want to do the right thing today? Is it really safe? Is it all about money? I find it to be all about money, not about anybody's safety.
And it's unfortunate.
Nor the members. Forget the civilians. Forget the public. They don't care. Because some of these contracts that I've read and some of the things that they've asked for that they won't give them. Why should I, when I was a trooper, I remember getting a call, burglary in progress, bank robbery, automatic weapons brandish. Hey, I'm doing lights and sirens to go get shot and wind up on workers' comp.
Right.
I have a family to feed too. I got to take care of my family. So what happens when the parole officer say, I'm not going in there. I get hurt tussling with a parole guy who doesn't want to go back to jail because he knows he's in trouble. He violated his parole. He's going to fight you. So I get hurt. So now my family's hurt.
Absolutely. And I think that's the whole picture that the city really doesn't, the city or the state. When that individual that provides the bread and butter for their family is out of commission because he's injured while providing service to the state and the city, it affects the family. It affects the family.
But here's something I bet you don't know. Do you know the education that the parole officers have? BAs and masters.
Yeah.
And you don't want to take care of them. These are educated people out there protecting and serving the state. That's a tough job. Just like corrections is another tough job. You know, as a trooper, I had to deal with them not knowing who they are when I walked up to the car. These are people who know who they are. Every day they go to work, they know what kind of people they're dealing with. That makes your job even more dangerous. And that makes it even more of a, wow, I got to put up with this every day. I mean, I could ride as a trooper for a day and meet nice people all day. My job could be very good that day. And then I can just run into every criminal in the book, but I won't know that until my day is over. They know what they're looking for when they go in. When they start their day, they know what's on their hand.
Because they're all on paper. So
it's right there.
Right.
It's right there.
You answered one of the questions, and let's see if we could elaborate a little bit more on that, is line of duty. Do they have line of duty now if they're injured? Are you kidding me? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
They're in a civilian. They're in a civilian union.
So
all the civilians. If you gave them line of duty, then you would have to give the civilians line of duties, and that's the issue here. You're not going to do that because if I was in a union, and the titles in my union have this, I want that too.
Got it. But that's amazing. They're going to rearrest most of the time a bad guy. They get injured in that process, and what do they get? You know, they're injured. How long? If they stay out for a year, what do they have to? How do
you
they
actually
survive?
stay out a year, then you lose your job.
Wow.
You can't come back to work.
Wow. What would you do different?
Well, one for line of duty is that's contract negotiations, and if you can't get it through that, then you would try through legislation. I mean, some we're fighting in the city too, where they have physically taxing. Physically taxing is a job that physically taxing. You're getting in and out of a car. You're doing a job that, over time, your body cannot work till 62, and now with the new tier, 63 years old. Wow. You can't do this job at that age. How are you going to run after a criminal? You're 60 years old. You know,
they don't have a 22 retirement. They can't retire after like.
No, they got to work. They're in a civilian package.
Wow. Now that one I didn't know.
Well,
That's rough.
This is where a law enforcement union knows what a law enforcement personnel needs or member needs, and that's the most important. Well,
that would be the upgrade in their working conditions. What would you, as the LIBA president, do to help them with their working conditions?
Well, working conditions would be through contract, safety issues, the vehicles, safety protocol. Do they have proper vests within the 5-year limits? Their weapons are kept up. They're doing everything at their disposal. Training. Also, periodic training. You know, do they go back? You know, for the state police, we have what we call refresher courses. You know, you go back every 3 years, you refresh on tickets, arrests. You know, do they go back through that? Do they go back through execute warrants again? Even though they're doing it every day, just to keep on their toes and stuff like that. Safety procedures, put the handcuffs, put them in the bag. You know, all the stuff that helps protect the law enforcement. You know, and that's why, as a union, we would start to develop a new contract that reflects what they do, reflects what they need to protect themselves.
I saw in the in my preparation, thanks to staff to that, they work very closely with the New York City Police Department and other agencies.
Well, they have to. You know, the one thing you do with a warrant is you have to know your surroundings. So if I'm going into your area, you're the chief of this town or village.
Right.
I want you to know that we're going to be knocking on somebody's door, executing a warrant, or that we're going to be there, or this guy's on parole, we're looking for him. So you want to work with the police department as well, because you want to develop a rapport with them, and you also want, you know, backup if you need it. So these guys are going up there with one car, with 2 men, and that's it. You don't know what you're going into. Yeah. You want backup. So you want to let the, you know, state police would know, the city, and depending on wherever they go throughout the whole state. New York City and all, they're everywhere.
I saw that in one of the videos that the NYPD Special Services Unit takes down the door and they follow right behind.
Mm-hmm. They're in harm's way. So if anybody's shooting, they're all going to get it. So, you know, and this is the part where, you know, my question would be, why are they in a civilian union? Honestly, I mean, you know, the people who claim to know what's going on, they know. They don't want to do nothing about it.
They don't want to do anything about it. It's all about dollars and cents, in your opinion?
Of course, always.
Always?
Because once they become free and they have their own certified bargaining certificate, it's about what they want, not what anybody else wants. And I give you an example. Let's say the new contract comes out for PEF, and it's, you know, just to be funny, everything they're giving them is something that they don't want. Well, if they only shy of 1,000, if PEF is well over 50,000, it doesn't matter if they all said no. They're still going to have to take that contract. So they have no say-so over their determination, their right determination. They can't say yes or no to a contract that would benefit them or not benefit them. So what's the reason in being in a union and fighting for a contract if you can't effectively dictate what kind of contract you want?
Do you believe, being that there's such an outcry from the membership, from the members of service, do you think PEF will fight you on this?
I don't know. I've had every group that we've gone after, we've gotten resistance. You know, and we have literature that they've tried to do for them, and they were told the same thing. As long as they're in a civilian union, it's not going to happen. I'm hoping that they won't fight them and let them go and let them be represented and get what they deserve, because you haven't done it till this day, which means you're not going to be able to do it.
Later on.
Later on. So let the members have that choice. You know, people don't understand. If they're not happy, they can always come back. They can always run back to PEF. But PEF knows, and I believe they know, like I said, the literature and the briefs and the paperwork that they've tried to do certain things in the past. I'm not saying they didn't try, but they were told that because of the situation, it's not going to happen. So I'm hoping that they let them go and they encourage it.
Well, what a great 28 minutes, President Kenneth Winder.
Good to see you again.
Law Enforcement Employees Anonymous, always good to see you. This is your home, you know that.
Well, you know, we'll be back here more. We got other groups that we're in the process right now of acquiring and hoping that we can set them up and do what we've done for a DP, which we've given. Their salaries have gone up from $25,000 to $35,000 per man. Retro checks in the 6 figures. So, you know, hopefully we can bring that kind of dedication and excellence for other groups.
Outstanding. My friend, thank you so much.
You too.
Always the best.
You too. Be
all
good.
All right. To all our state parole and probation officers, thank you for your service. You're always in our hearts and prayers. And for all of you, thank you for joining us once again on the Advocates Corner with Clark Pena. Always reminding you, stay safe. Let's take care of each other. Hasta la próxima.